I wanted to tell a completely different story. This is not a story that's going to necessarily go on the cover of Forbes magazine, but this is a very real story. I don't need to be the biggest and best and most profitable clothing company out there. Like, that was never my intention. I'm not here to convert everyone in the world. I don't want everyone. I just want someone. I'm Bobby Hundreds. I'm a co-founder and chief creative officer of the Hundreds. My book is called This Is Not a T-Shirt. What I'm trying to express throughout the book is that streetwear has very little to do with actual garments themselves, with actual design. It's always been about culture and community. And what I mean by that, it's always been about stories, it's been about people, it's about bringing people together, it's about all these unique different fire brands and iconoclasts, like such different people. And depending on the kind of person you are, you will find something that sees you, that you can connect with. If my brand is not for you, I guarantee you, there's another brand out there for you that's gonna speak to you and you're gonna feel really heard and seen in that brand. That's why I call it This Is Not a T-Shirt. It's not about the T-shirt, it's about the people. I grew up in Riverside, California in the 80s and 90s, and we didn't have access to a lot of cool high fashion stores. There wasn't a Fairfax or a La Brea back then, and we also weren't mindful of like the Paris runways. We bought what our parents could afford or wanted to provide us, and so for me that was shopping at the local swap meet. It was the Chicago Avenue swap meet in Riverside. It still exists to this day as far as I know. And t-shirts were 3 for $10. They were blank all-style apparel tees, which are still the baseline blank shirt that we use for our brand. And so that's there's a purpose there. That's why we started going with that shirt to begin with. $25 solo denim, $20 Dickies, some Converse. And I grew up believing that that was fashion. It wasn't just a uniform to me. I felt like it said something about me in terms of just the style of it being workwear. The Hundreds has always been inspired by workwear. We try to design along the lines of workwear because philosophically we feel aligned with what it represents. It's for the every person. It's not necessarily an aspirational type of fashion. So early on in the brand, we were just printing t-shirts, and we aspired to design actual cut and sew clothing one day, make denim, make outerwear, hats and jackets and stuff like that. But we didn't know how. We didn't have access to it here in Los Angeles. And I met my mentor, who eventually became my mentor, was Alyasha Aworkamore. Ollie is responsible for a lot of the early urban brands, and he also had a lot of success with some of the foundational streetwear brands. And Ollie kind of took us under his wing, and he said, hey, if you guys are meaning to design full collections of apparel, I need to take you to Hong Kong. And Hong Kong was like this far off mystical planet to me. I had never imagined that one day I could travel there, and he's just like, I'm leaving Tuesday, you're getting on the flight. And so he took me to Hong Kong for the first time. I'm entering this metropolis, still one of my favorite places to go in the world, and really one of the greatest cities. I remember the first day he walked me through the fabric yards, and there's open fabric markets where you can pull swatches of materials to be used for shirting or for pants or whatever you're trying to make. He then connected me with Ben Chung, who was his mentor in a lot of ways in terms of apparel design. And between Ben Chung and Alyasha Aworkamore, they both trained me in design and actual fashion and apparel design through these Hong Kong trips. I think that affected how the Hundreds eventually shaped its look and aesthetic. So we found a print shop in the city. There was only one of two at the time who had a machine called a belt printer. And we find this shop, and we convinced the guy, like, can you fire this machine up again? And so we decided to do paisley. I was a fan of bandanas, and I kind of wanted to look like a huge bandana print. Everyone's trying them on, and I'm videoing it. And again, this is like 2005. So I spend like 4 hours building a PayPal shopping cart, still don't get the coding right. 8 a.m. the next morning, I hear this banging on my apartment door. My girlfriend's in her work clothes, and she's at the door, and she's banging. She's like, wake up, wake up, wake up. The hoodie sold out. And I was like, well, that's great. And she's just like, no, you never set a cap on it. So you sold $100,000 of sweatshirts, actually more than that. It was like $180,000, something crazy, like way beyond the amount of sweatshirts that you actually have. And in fact, back then we didn't want the money. Like we wanted to be so limited and cool that we were like, yeah, we're just gonna give all this money back. And so we're looking at our office at that time, and everyone knew it was our spot. It was kind of like a clubhouse. And we're like, we've always wanted to have a store. Why not just put it right here? And so we imagined this beautiful store. We took all that money from the Paisley. We were like, we're rich, but you know, it was our first taste of real success. I don't necessarily hate Adam Bomb. So Adam Bomb is our mascot. He was always intended to be our mascot. You know, I spend my life building this brand, and along the way, you know, Ben had suggested, why don't you make like a cartoon mascot for us? You love cartoons. And I'm like, yeah, that'll be fun. And so I drew this Adam Bomb character, and I introduced him to the world, and I'm like, yeah, here's our mascot, you know. He's not our logo, he's our mascot. And the marketplace and the audience started saying, we only want Adam Bomb. Like Adam Bomb is just so good that it is eclipsing everything else in the collection. And so that's always been my tension with that character, right? He's my best friend and he's my worst enemy. I achieved peace with it when I realized it brought a lot of people happiness. I love collaborations. I believe that all creativity comes from collaboration. As you know by now, like I'm a big fan of like building relationships, right? So just a friendship is a collaboration. The Hundreds itself is a collaboration because Ben and I coming together, we're so different and we have such diverse and different backgrounds. And so that collaboration created something original and unique that doesn't exist elsewhere in the world, which is the Hundreds, right? And so I've always looked at collaborations as that. I'm like, how do we find partners that there's an interesting story to be told there? Someone that we work with, someone that we can engage in a really good conversation with and come up with a great idea, something that 1 + 1 equals not like 2, but like 2,000, you know? I have this saying of stay true, but don't stay put, you know? Like, I love where we are. I love being anchored in our roots. Like, I love that we're a streetwear brand that is now weirdly considered an OG brand just because we've been able to survive and thrive for 16 years. I also look at the Hundreds as, it was never really just about clothing, right? It's also a platform. And what else can we use this platform for, right? So it's interesting that I spent the entire course of this brand in my career talking about brand building. How do you build a brand? You know, like this is how we're building a brand, and I felt like I was constantly building it. And it wasn't until recently that I looked up and I was like, I built a brand. Now what do you do once you've built a brand, right? Like you now use it as a stage to highlight other people. I also can use this stage to talk about issues that are really dear to me or that are starting to you know, stoke my imagination or starting to challenge me in many ways, whether that's a social cause or it's sustainability in fashion, which is like something that I had never considered even a year ago. And now I get to use this platform to discuss it and debate it and share it with our audience, right? The future is almost limitless when I look at it that way. The Hundreds is always a part of me, it is me, and it also has been able to open so many doors in my life, not just in terms of career, but in terms of people I get to meet every day.